Hello, and welcome to We Are the Deluge, a spoiler-free chapter-by-chapter podcast about the climate change novel, The Deluge by Stephen Markley. We are your co-hosts, Emily Crandall and John McMahon, viewed by many as the foremost authorities on all matters The Deluge by Stephen Markley.
That's great. Not one of the ones I had, by the way.
Today we are discussing What We Dream of When We're Dying, set in 2037 to 2038, the fifth and final chapter from Tony Pietrus's point of view, and the penultimate chapter of the novel.
Tier. Lots of them.
Which we are presenting in the form of an academic journal article.
A harbinger of our own future, perhaps.
Yeah, a little on the nose. Which we will say a lot more about in a lot of different ways, I'm sure.
No doubt.
No doubt.
I feel like it's going to be a long one. Should we get straight into the abstracts?
Let's do it.
All right. Our ones and summaries. I've got Tony fights a potentially futile battle for the future, for his kids and grandkids, for peckerwoods and surly fucks, and maybe for us all, while refusing to fight his own cancer. All his dreams, memories of Gail, and a creeping oceanic feeling flood over him and flood over us.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Okay, I went with, in this chapter, the reader is presented with Tony's... Thank you. The reader is presented with Tony's last reflections on climate change, its politics, the great loves of his life, and facing death, while simultaneously the reader is confronted with the possibility that the form of this novel is not exactly as it seems.
How did you get exclusive early access to Ghostwriter AI?
Yeah.
As a human.
Seriously. This chapter kind of broke my brain a little bit.
It's where the extremely meta through line of the novel reaches its fullest form, I think. Until the next chapter.
Right. Of course. Always.
Yeah.
Okay, so who do we need to catch up on?
I mean, I think we'll address more or less all the characters, I suspect, and some of the plot notes. Can I offer one conspiracy theory that I don't actually believe, but which is our, I think, collective podcast headcanon? Mm-hmm. It's mentioned that Emmy had a daughter in Denver who we never knew about until this moment. And so I propose that the conspiracy theory is that is Tinkerbell, who we know is a woman in Denver.
Okay, I don't think that is a non-true conspiracy theory, because we also learn that the remaining members of 6 Degrees, we learn in this chapter, get apprehended because of insider information. So follow me on this.
Okay, tinfoil's on.
Emmy Lee Song gets killed in a 6 Degrees plot.
Yes.
Tinkerbell maybe develops the relationship with Shane in the first place because she's critical of her mom's dealings.
Yes.
And then is fucking pissed when her mom is the target of one of the attacks and says, fuck all of them. She already knows that Shane's on the lam, and she already knows, and she does not, as far as we know, release any information that implicates Shane whatsoever.
Correct.
So I think it is in the book, actually, that Emmy Lee Song's daughter is Tinkerbell and is also the whistleblower.
There is a perfect internal coherency to this.
Yeah. It's maybe too cute.
It is. That's okay. This novel enjoys it.
But it also opens up the question of, to what degree, if Emmy Lee Song's daughter is Tinkerbell, what does that mean for the kind of character Emmy Lee Song is? Should we read her as actually passing information to her daughter? Is she a mole? Is she like a Jackie, right? She begins as I'm going to be a badass girl boss, and over time starts to her conscience starts to gnaw at her. I don't know how she would know that her daughter would have developed this secret contact, but you don't know, maybe there's something, she has a suspicion, or there's some kind of thing that goes on between them as mother and daughter, whether that's resentment or collaboration, conspiracy. I don't know. I think it opens up the question of, who was she really?
It also opens up the question to really be on the nose about it. It's another parent-daughter question about what daughters get from their parents and inherit from their parents and do not, or what they try to disidentify from.
Yeah, and what parents will sacrifice or not for their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's a little bit of reluctance, right, by Tinkerbell in the final Shane chapter to actually go forward with this. But you're exactly right. If it is Emmy's daughter, like this would be the thing to push her over the edge to
and it's the
release the files.
And it's the only thing that makes sense too, right? It's like they get the principles and they do not get Shane. Like,
oh, I think it's 100% confirmed that Shane is the reason this all happens.
Right. And
then we have to put the tinfoil on to make Emmy the Tinkerbell as the fulcrum.
Mm-hmm. That's my foil hat song.
Incredible. Intro time?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, what do you got for our cultural artifact? What's our hook?
Okay, I am going to propose the 2025 film by Joachim Trier.
I can't wait to see this.
Sentimental Value.
I'm so pumped for this movie.
Yes. Okay. So I loved his movie, The Worst Person in the World, that came out in 2021.
One of my favorites. I thought it was beautiful.
This is not surprising to me at all. I was like beside myself sobbing in the theater. Sentimental Value.
I watched Worst Person in the World like at home on my couch like soon after a breakup. So it was a lot of tears in the McMahon, me and Larry household.
John.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I'm with you in the past, giving you a nice shoulder pat.
Thank you.
Okay, so this isn't really like nothing spoilery here. It's not really a movie that I think you can spoil. It's like about the affects and emotions and intensities and so on. But the premise is that there is a father who has been sort of absent from his daughter's lives. Their mother dies of an illness, and he shows up at the funeral. This is right in the first like 3 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
And then like tries to kind of clumsily patch up his relationships with his adult daughters. So it's really interesting in the movie because the younger daughter is the one who kind of has her shit together. She's a historian, an academic historian. She has a kid. She has like sort of been the mediator kind of between her elder sister and her father, between her mother and her father. So she's the one who's sort of kept tabs on him all these years, who kind of knows what he's up to. And he's like a formerly famous filmmaker who has this like script, you know, it's going to be like his best film ever. And he wants to film it in the house that they grew up in. And the older sister, who's an actress, who's struggling mentally, has this like attachment to the house. So he like offers her the part. She's like, I can't work with you. And then the whole movie kind of flows from that opening. And it's about them dealing with that. And it's excellent. I'm so excited for you to see it. But I thought it was.
It'll take a while to make its way. Well, not even to Plattsburgh, but to Burlington, Vermont.
John, move back. Okay, so this is just like, it was very funny to me because I was watching this knowing that we were going to be reading the Tony chapter this week, and I hadn't even done the reread and prep yet. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like literally this thing I'm watching is like a perfect pair with a Tony Pietris chapter, like man with adult daughters, lamenting, never quite saying the right thing, so on and so forth. But I think it's interesting to think about maybe this is like a cultural difference, but I feel like in the US, the like elder daughter, younger daughter is like that is like Holly Catherine, right? Like the elder daughter, oldest daughter syndrome or whatever is like the one who's got it together. And it was interesting to have that kind of flipped in the film. But I think that in a way, what it does in the movie is like kind of the thing that Holly sort of gets vulnerable about at the end of this chapter, which is that like, I remember more than Catherine does. And so like, actually, I know things about cancer, about trauma, about death, about loss that like Catherine, the one who struggles, doesn't even know about, you know? And it's like, what's that?
Or no, she should know about it.
Or no, she should know about. Yeah. Like Tony at some point makes a kind of quip that it's Catherine's first go around at like global crisis or whatever. Right. And Holly's like, she's not even that much older than her, but she's old hat. Right. Like, and also she's been literally physically at the center of like some really intense kind of manifestations of that global crisis. So like she has a different understanding of the world than Catherine. And like, you know, I'm sure at some point when we talk about the last scene, I'll cry, but like
same.
But I think it's interesting to do a thing where you render the older daughter like actually made vulnerable by what it means to have experienced more and to also have been the one to protect the younger one from so much. And it's also just a really funny pair because the dad is played by the Skarsgård patriarch, which is just like, I think such a funny sub-in for like Tony, arguably the patriarch of the novel, ? Like,
great read.
And maybe what I'm also proposing is that we cast eventually the OG Skarsgård in as Tony in the TV adaptation of The Deluge by Stephen Markley.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I'm so excited
we can have one of the Skarsgård sons play Tony in Tony 1, and then Stellan can take over for the time jump after book 1.
This is what I'm saying. And I think it's really funny also to have like a man who's a famous actor who has children who are famous actors play like an aging director who's like grappling with maybe his increasing irrelevance. And like, he's also a father and grappling with his failures as a father. And it strikes me as actually a really interesting parallel between Threading the Needle in comparing Tony, the scientist, Tony, the important man, Tony, maybe ? One of the heroes of the book, right? Or of the world, with like Tony, the bumbling dad, you know, who's like making mistakes and not hiding things from his daughters for quote unquote, for their own good, which is like something that is so fucking triggering for me, but like so real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't believe how on the nose it was.
It's a great call, and I can't wait to go see Sentimental Value and cry at that while also crying at the same time about Tony.
Yep.
And Holly and Tony and Ash, actually, for different reasons.
Yep. Okay, what do you got?
Well, I've got a couple that never quite reached full fruition, so I'll try to work through them quickly. And I'll first go with the film counterpart, perhaps, to Sentimental Value that I was thinking about a lot with this chapter. That's really a setting and mood more than anything else. Ooh. And that is Noah Baumbach's 2005, The Squid and the Whale. Because you have this crucial scene in this, you know, the like concluding scene of Tony's life is at the American Natural History Museum. And obviously like the title of the movie, the scene in the movie, right, is about the squid and the whale at the American Museum of Natural History. So there's that there. But like Tony is the alt version of Squid and the Whale because he doesn't go down the path that the patriarch in the Squid and the Whale goes down, right? Because in the Squid and the Whale, like he ends up like fucking a student, and like that creates problems with his sons. And here, Tony actually does not go down the Gail joking admonishment to find a climate groupie replacement.
Yeah.
And so like Tony is offering I think a different kind of masculinity and different notion of how one responds to difficulties and dramas in one's life, whether self-imposed or externally imposed. And that by doing so, he opens up a different relationship to kids, right? So obviously it's Jesse Eisenberg as the main character in Squid and the Whale, and then Holly and Catherine here. And that it's, I think, fascinating to me that there are those two different relationships to masculinity, to relationship to kinship or whatever. And yet they both kind of come back together through this like climactic tie to non-human animals in the sea, and a scene of violence, potential or actual, in between non-human animals. And that like that gets thematized very directly by Tony's granddaughter. Here,
Hannah.
And Hannah Gail Yu in this chapter. So the Squid and the Whale is one
so
of them.
Good. Yeah. She's like, it eats people.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they don't. But it's like, whoa. Wow.
Yeah, like who's devouring what? Like, do parents inevitably psychically devour their children, right. et cetera, are all there.
Oh, well, we're getting ahead to our lit review, John.
I know. Speaking of oceanic failings and all. So secondly, I'll offer, in honor of Tony Beatrice himself, he would absolutely be one of the people who reads A Song of Ice and Fire is about climate change, despite George R. R. Martin being on the record many times. That's not the case. Because like the reading, the interpretation, it does work, where the others are the climate altering existential threat to living beings that we know about and could know more about and would rather squabble amongst ourselves than do anything about. Structurally, it works. Obviously, I think that this would have been had to have been 10 years ago, but actually we can learn about new materialism and hyperobjects through the Children of the Forest and the Old Gods and the Weirwood trees and all of that kind of stuff. Like that piece of political theory was right there for us. We wanted to pursue it in the past. So Martin's, like I said, that's never really been on his mind, but I think that the interpretation works, and I think that Tony would pursue that reading of A Song of Ice and Fire.
I love that. That's also that's the Halberstam move, right? Like, who cares what George R.R. Martin
precisely
said he was saying? What he really said was.
And I'm partially, of course, drawing on the fact that the dog is named Jamie, and as we have Tyrion and Jamie. Question for you: is Jamie, the dog of Tony, the dog that gets rescued in El Demonio?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I assume so.
Yeah, that was my assumption.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then
a lot more, I should say, eternal return in this chapter.
Yeah. And then I'm going to offer a song that I think resonates with the way that Tony's arc in the novel involves a kind of cursed oblique Americana. Because if you think about Tony as somebody who has a lot to say about different places of America, but it's an utterly emotionally and then physically and violently tortured relationship to all of these places.
Right.
He's in Florida. He is in California and El Demonio. He's in Florida several times. Mm-hmm. He is detained in a black site in the desert in New Mexico for a while.
He's in DC.
He's in New Haven, right? So he is one who travels around, and there's something about his always having something to say that's observant and cynical and jaded about all of these places, and or these places are sites of violence in general, or violence against him in particular. Brought me to an artist that I think Tony would have liked, and that is, I think it's the Phoebe Bridgers song "I Know the End."
Yes,
is the soundtrack of Tony's life.
Yes, and we know that Tony likes the music that his kids used to listen to.
Exactly.
Yes, I love this take.
And obviously Holly would be a Ferb. That's I think a very fair reading of the situation. I once had a student just dead to rights ask me out of nowhere one day, you must really like Phoebe Bridgers, huh, Dr. McMahon? Got me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow,
I love that student.
Yeah, she's now she's going to graduate from law school this year, so good for her.
That's amazing.
And there's also, I think, something about the way that Phoebe Bridgers just screams at the end of I Know the End that to me resonates with Tony's emotional landscape that he returns to throughout the whole novel, but particularly throughout this chapter. And the way that he almost does a phase transition to a different state of being. Mm-hmm. And there's something for him, it's not this kind of primal scream.
But he also breaks protocol.
He does. Yeah.
Breaks glass or whatever.
Yeah, he sure does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I thought about doing a whole lyrics of I Know the End, but I decided against that for time purposes. But I think that's the song to play while you are reading this chapter.
That's so good. I was also struck when you were talking about all the places that he is by, and maybe we could just put a pin in this, but I want to flag it really quick, by the fact that he spends very little time thinking about, at least in what we have access to, the institutions that he's a part of. When he's in New Haven, he's not at Yale. When he's in La Jolla, he's a little bit at Scripps, but he's not really of Scripps or in Scripps. And it's kind of an interesting, I wonder what's going on there, but maybe there are some theories to tease out when we get to our methods and findings.
Beautiful.
Chapter. Yeah. Section of the paper. Yeah.
A little bit of in-chapter references to the movie Her.
I literally, in the first scene where he starts talking to AI, I wrote Her LOL in the margin, and then 3 pages later, he literally references the movie.
Perfect.
It's so funny. Maybe I unconsciously remembered, but it also is just giving Her.
100%. What's the movie with talking birds that's mushy? Is it Happy Feet? Is that?
I don't know. Happy Feet's penguins. Like, why would they say talking birds? Yeah, I have no idea.
That's why I couldn't quite make it work out. Can I give you my conspiracy theory?
Yes.
Okay, so, and this is also a transition into the lit review. So if we go to the dream on page 812, I want to point out the unknowingness and structure of the final three sentences. Mm-hmm. So it's this dream, and eventually it's Holly and Catherine and Tony, and here's how it ends. Tony took his girls by the hands, and they kept on. He didn't know where they were going. Maybe they were trying to get home. Does that remind you of anything as like a closing line?
Maybe they were trying to get home.
Or in some ways, actually, it's all three of those lines together. There's something about the cadence and like the knowingness and the unknowingness that, to me, I think that is the ones who walk away from Omella's homage. Oh. Right? Because at the end, right, they have this purpose. They don't know where they're not going to anywhere in particular. Yes. They're just walking away. And yet they know where they're going. So they seem to know where they're going is the liquid. Mm-hmm. And there's something about the like into the unknowing, into the vastness of the universe. And yet nonetheless, it's very purposeful and about trying to find some sense of like community and solitude outside of the violence of the city of Omelas or the violence of the rest of the dream.
Have we done Le Guin yet on this podcast? We haven't.
I don't think so. Which is really funny, actually.
I'm honestly like shocked that we haven't. It's kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. I guess the one time we maybe talked about Le Guin is when we were trying to guess what was on Matt's bookshelf.
That would make sense.
I bet one of us said Le Guin.
I think that's a great call. Because like the novel is actually, The Day of the Deluge is actually more the ones who stay and fight. So Jemison's like rejoinder / follow-up. Right. And it is Le Guin, I think. Yeah. But I think that this is a ones who walk away moment.
Okay, but you know what Le Guin book this is? It's The Lathe of Heaven.
I haven't read that one.
Okay. You should read it.
Okay.
And then you'll be like, oh, this is the Deluge. But it's like a novella that reminds me, I told Osha I was going to loan it to him and I'm going to see him later. So I got to put it in my bag.
Amazing. Hi, Osha. Yeah.
I know. But it's like the premise of it is actually, this is so fucking on the nose for our lit review. I can't believe this is just occurring to me right now.
Do this and launch us in.
So the premise of The Lathe of Heaven is that there's a psychologist who realizes that one of his patients is changing the future in his dreams, and the psychologist tries to control it, and it like accelerates climate change, and it takes place in Seattle. It's like, yeah, and she wrote it in like the fucking 70s or something. It's fucking bananas. Genius, yeah, like fucking genius. Also, this book was giving me a little bit of Butler too, and again in some places.
This chapter was giving me. Yeah. Two different butlers.
Yes, yes. Me too. Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
At some point, I'm sure. Should we move into our lit review?
We should. Do you wanna talk us through the premise?
Okay, so I proposed to John that we take a page out of our OG podcast project, the Always Already podcast. Shout out to our lovely comrades from grad school. We had a segment on that podcast called One or Several Wolves.
Yes.
Where we would ask our listeners to send in dreams for us to analyze, and we would analyze them. And it was very odd that everyone's dreams somehow seem to be about finishing a dissertation, no matter who they were. Yeah. I don't know what that says about where we were in our lives. So I proposed to John that we do, in honor of the title of the chapter, which is What We Dream of When We're Dying, and because Tony has several dreams, 3 specific moments where he has a dream, and then a couple other moments that I think are dreamlike.
That's a good way to put it.
That I propose that we do a One or Several Wolves of Tony's dreams as our theory section, our lit review section of this academic paper. So I think maybe what we do is like talk about some of the like Freud concepts and then read the dreams, or should we read the dreams first and then?
I think we're theorists ultimately, so I think we do the concepts and then we go to the dreams.
Yeah. Okay. So what concepts do you want to have us think with?
So I am going to actually do a concept that is less useful for dream analysis for Freud, but I think is quite useful for us and our purposes.
Great.
And that is that I want to talk about the idea of the oceanic feeling from Civilization is Discontents.
Great.
So this is the way that Civilization is Discontents start. I'm going to reference some page numbers in the Norton Standard Edition of Civilization is Discontents. And so Freud gets into this in an interesting way. So he says that, his previous book was, so The Future of an Illusion is about like why do people seek religion, right? To be very basic about it. And he opens Civilization is Discontents by saying, well, there's actually this one other reason that I didn't mention in that book. So I want to use this to set up the entirety of Civilization is Discontents. And it's a notion and it's a feeling that he actually gets from his friend, right? Romain Rolland speaks of it as the oceanic feeling. And so a couple quotes from Freud about the oceanic feeling. So this is page 11. It is a feeling which he, Rolland, would like to call a sensation of eternity, a feeling as of something limitless, unbounded, as it were, oceanic. Then down to the bottom of 11. That is to say, it is a feeling of an indissoluble bond, of being one with the external world as a whole. I may remark that to me this seems something rather in the nature of an intellectual perception, which is not, it is true, without an accompanying feeling tone, but only such as would be present with any other act of thought of equal range. Jumping ahead to page 15. And here's where he starts to kind of work through the idea of the oceanic feeling in his like structure of the psyche, right? So id, ego, superego. Our present ego feeling is therefore only a shrunken residue of a much more inclusive, indeed an all-embracing feeling which corresponded to a more intimate bond between the ego and the world about it. If we may assume that there are many people in whose mental life this primary ego feeling has persisted to a greater or lesser degree, it would exist in them side by side with the narrower and more sharply demarcated ego feeling of maturity, like a kind of counterpart to it. In that case, the ideational contents appropriate to it would be precisely those of limitlessness and of a bond with the universe. The same ideas with which my friend elucidated the oceanic feeling. And then one last Freud, and this is page 20. It is possible, we can only hold fast to the fact that it is rather the rule than the exception for the past to be preserved in mental life. Thus, we are perfectly willing to acknowledge that the oceanic feeling exists in many people. And we are inclined to trace it back to an early phase of ego feeling. Right. So for Freud, the notion of the oceanic feeling, the oneness, the eternity, the wholeness is actually a marker of the persistence of the like structure of the ego feeling from very early in one's life as they start to develop an ego within his framework. And I think that Tony expresses throughout, let's call it the entire novel, an oceanic feeling and kind of like oneness with the world and its various kind of moments and complexities. And there's a way in which the entirety of the trip to the Natural History Museum is part of that. But to give just kind of one example, and this is while he is conscious, right? So this is not him in a dream, although this oceanic feeling comes up in the dream as well. This is a dream. It's a dream within a narration. He dreamed of a grand filament, exquisitely thin, yet impossibly tough. And in this vision, he could reach out and feel its tensile strength, threading him to the Descendants, to every dream of civilization, and to all those dense and lonely planets spinning their loops out of the expanding darkness. And like, that's not the only oceanic feeling, because the chapter also ends on the oceanic feeling. So these are like the final words, so to speak, of Tony Pietris. It made him ache for the haunting, unremembered glimpse when he came upon this light for the first time, this superlunary glare, locking him forever in panic and wonder, carrying with it the promise of the night making its dazzling return, which is a kind of way to appropriate to Tony the Scientist, astronomically, read the oceanic feeling by tying it to the sun and the fact that the sun will be there the next day. And in between are the night and the stars. So like the famous in our circles between the two of us closing line of Tony's first chapter is also an oceanic feeling, almost literal sense. So oceanic feeling is kind of where I'm at, but I think Tony points to the way that the oceanic feeling, even if we were to fully grant Freud's argument about like what structurally in the psyche it is, Tony shows that like it's not a regression, or it's not something that necessarily turns one back towards an early phase of life and like psychological development, but rather the oceanic feeling could be something that is a multi-directional complex temporality, and that unconsciously the oceanic feeling could drive one, including drive Tony, to try to reconcile like the individual and the social, and the kind of psychic antagonism between those, in between Eros and death, and so on and so forth. So oceanic feeling is my concept. And then I have a tiny, tiny little one, if you'll permit me.
Yes.
And that is that I choose to believe the conspiracy theory that I came up with on 8/12, that dream is a direct reference to Freud and Little Hans.
Yes.
And the horse.
Okay.
And I'll turn to you.
Okay. So I'm gonna be really promiscuous with some like concepts and texts here.
Perfect.
Go with me. And I'm gonna try to thread out or tease out, I guess, a question that I think to read back into the discussion of the oceanic is gonna like maybe fuck our brains a little bit, but we'll figure it out. Okay.
That's why we're here. So
I was thinking about in the interpretation of dreams, the kind of schema that Freud lays out for like actually thinking about A, how do we understand where the content of dreams comes from? And B, what are the sort of levels at which we expect dreams to kind of contain meaning, right? So he's interested in like the relationship between kind of like the immediacy of like your conscious experience. So like what you do in the day before you go to sleep, or what memories you have about your life before you go to sleep. And like there's some kind of relationship for Freud between the kind of internal and external in those situations. And so like content is both always kind of like immediate, but also always like latent, right? And so like the task of the analyst is to and then like, but then what you remember from the dream is only partial. So you can grasp little bits of it, and that's what you can tell. So the task of the analyst is try to recover like what's under the bits that you that have remained manifest, sort of like in your memory upon waking. So we have the manifest and the latent, right? And then Freud was really interested in like where things come to either be condensed or displaced. It's kind of like two of the frameworks for doing that interpretive work. So I want to think about the wolf man. I want to go to D&G after that. And then I want to ask us a question. Okay.
I'm really excited for this.
So one of Freud's favorite cases, right? The Wolfman's dream. So this childhood nightmare of one of Freud's famous patients. He dreams the night before his 4th birthday, right? That he's lying in bed. Oh, wait. Yeah. Okay. So the night before his 4th birthday, right? He dreams he's lying in bed when all of a sudden the window swings open. Peering out, he saw 6 or 7 white wolves sitting in the tree outside his bedroom, their eyes fixed on him. Terrified by their gaze, he woke up screaming. He makes a sketch for Freud, right? So it's like you can go, if you go to the Freud Museum in London, you can see the painting, which is kind of funny. And so Freud was like, okay, this dream marks a turning point in your childhood. He had been going through like a naughty phase, but after the dream, it was replaced by a period of intense anxiety. So Freud asks the question of whether there really are, like 6 wolves. I'm very much condensing the what the dream means for Freud, but just to set up D&G, like, are there actually 6 wolves kind of like hunting this kid, or are they really just sort of one wolf? So this is the joke, one or several wolves here. But Deleuze and Guattari, I love this opening paragraph from the chapter in 1,000 Plateaus. I don't know if this is the opening paragraph. That day, the Wolfman, is that the opening paragraph?
It is indeed. Yeah.
Okay, so that day, the Wolfman rose from the couch particularly tired. He knew that Freud had a genius for brushing up against the truth and passing it by, then filling the void with associations. He knew that Freud knew nothing about wolves or anuses, for that matter. Just incredible. So they go on to be Freud is so interesting because he discovers, right, the greatest art of the unconscious, the art of molecular multiplicities, but then he's tirelessly at work, right, trying to bring back molar unities. So this is where they're like thinking about rhizomes and multiplicity, and also what sets up one discussion of the body without organs.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, John, can AI dream? And are the dreams in the Tony chapters of the Deluge Tony's dreams?
Jesus Christ.
Or are they the dreams of the AI?
I can't believe I've never asked myself this question before. I'm going to try to split some hairs here.
Yeah.
And say that
and then we should read the ones we haven't read yet. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to say that the AI itself cannot dream, but it can take Tony's waking life, think about what is going to be manifest and latent in his unconscious, and generate dreams that are consistent with Tony's psyche.
Yes.
So I want to give you a no AI cannot dream, but it can generate text about dreams that work with the subject.
I think it's interesting too to think about the reference to her, right? And like the ways in which Tony distinguishes his own AI writing assistant from that film, right? In that film, the AI has like an ethical sensibility, maybe a consciousness, right? And Tony's like, my AI has no opinions. It just tells me like, I have no opinion about that. But he programs it with Gail's voice. And it surprises him, not like as a distinct consciousness, but in part because of what it reveals to Tony about himself. So like, I wonder if Markley is making an argument that like of AI as like a repository for our own subconscious or something like that, that's one of its potential uses. And then what it can do is make our dream, like remember our dreams for us, recover our dreams for us so that we can analyze them.
Yep.
And now we have to analyze them.
Yes. Our first dream in this chapter is on page 802. That night, he had a dream. He stood on the side of a mid-sized mountain overlooking a plateau of forest, gazing past boulders and ridges and red, 1,000 of them, yellow autumn trees. In the distance were more mountains and river valleys, green and lush. On the plateau were hundreds of people gathered in an enormous circle around dusty ground. They were dressed in red and white, faces obscured by black masks with no mouth or eye holes. They had their arms around each other, swaying back and forth as one, humming a low, throaty song. Section break.
Like, wow. And that night is the night he finds out about Kate's death. That's the night he has that dream. Okay, so what is manifest in this dream and what is latent?
This is the one I have the most trouble with. To be quite honest.
I mean, it's also interesting because when we open his fourth chapter, he's in the VR world in Switzerland with Ash, right?
And he's been in Davos in the chapter. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's kind of like these mountains overlooking plateaus, gazing boulders and ridges and red, yellow autumn trees. It's like evokes, I think, like his journey literally and sort of like on the globe in trying to convince people to sort of do something about climate change, right? Like the mountains are both the object and the setting or something like that.
And the
right?
task, right? It's pushing a boulder uphill and maybe Sisyphus, like it rolls back down and you got to be happy.
Yeah. But then like, what are these people?
Okay, I do have a theory about that one. And it actually takes the wolves motif very literally.
Yes.
And that is and this is in part because we just watched it in class, but like what I conjure in my mind when they were dressed in red and white, faces obscured by black masks with no mouth or eye holes, it's it's not an actual description, but on pure associational terms, it reminds me of Sans Mask and Princess Mononoke.
Oh.
And so like there's a way in which the question is, well, how do we actually know these are humans? And is human the relevant category to describe the hundreds of people in an enormous circle around dusty ground?
Arms around each other, swaying back and forth, humming a low, throaty song. They're wolves.
Yeah. Or are they wolves? Or are like they some other being categorized outside a human, non-human binary, such that Tony is like grasping, because he's ultimately a humanist, but maybe he's grasping for, because of his like complex systems theories,
right?
because
A kind of
his
speciesism.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Or these are wolves in red cloaks, and Stephen Markley is just like, here's a little mic drop for anyone who's reading this book who is interested in Deleuze and Guattari.
That's my hope.
And Freud, right? Like
that's my hope.
He's like, someday Emily and John are going to make a podcast about this book.
The AI
and I'm going to give them, and I'm going to give them this dream to make all of their grad school podcasting dreams come true.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Plateau was like so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's,
and I mean, and the no mouth and no eye holes is very Deleuze and Guattari.
I know, but then this makes me feel like I want to ascribe consciousness to the AI, because like if the AI is a non-human entity, right? And like the AI is churning back for Tony out of his own unconscious, a like latent, like new materialist ethical orientation toward non-human others, then like it's also advocating for its own its own subjectivity or something.
Well, Tony
like
makes
that.
a joke about that, right? To the editor at the conglomerate publishing house. They're like, oh, funny how the algorithms vote to give themselves more power.
Yes.
But I think the crucial distinction you made is, first, we have to decouple consciousness from only applying to humans. And then then it becomes less running into conflict with our other commitments to then ascribe consciousness to AI.
Right. Yeah. And like, what is it? Yeah. I don't know. I have a former student who's working on a project on this, like AI, gender identity, consciousness, and things like that. It's like really interesting. So it's like really on my mind. But I'm like, I wonder if there's not like a cheeky thing happening here, which is that like, if these dreams are being fed to him by his editorial assistant, or is it an editor? Or like, I guess the AI is the ghostwriter, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the name of the program, right?
By his ghostwriter, then like, is that supposed to test us as readers for like how we imagine? Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. That like, are we imagining this AI that he's having a conversation with, like Scarlett Johansson in the movie Her, and like, is Markley trying to like break that there to like get us to, I don't know, confront that? Anyway,
amazing.
We're sort of spilling into methods and findings here. I apologize.
That's okay.
Should we look at the next stream?
Yes, you take this one. I read the last one.
Which one? Where is it?
812.
812. Oh wait, no. There's one on 803.
Oh.
Well, yeah. It's a kind of description of several dreams. So on the flight out of Sun Valley, he watched the scarred and jagged horizon backlit by orange flame. They landed in Cleveland, and he couldn't sleep without his dreams growing darker. He found himself standing on a patch of brittle ground, ankles tangled in tree roots, boxed in on all four sides by jets of fire. Black smoke curled from the cinders and snaked around his wrists and torso. Within the flames, he saw demons, shrieking and taunting, and he had a nagging fear that he'd left something or somebody behind. The worst part was that when he looked straight up, he could see the stars.
There's a couple very obvious readings available to us here. Of course, this is El Demonio.
Yeah.
The question, though, of who gets left behind then becomes the interesting thing.
Yes.
Because it's like, did he leave Gail behind when he kept living his life, or when he didn't die in El Demonio in the fire? Has he left his kids behind in some way or another?
Right, by not treating his cancer.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly it, right? So like the cancer could be the demon and the flames, because we already know later in the chapter he's interested in thinking about cancer might symbolize or can be stand in as a metaphor for. However, I'd like to offer a deeper conspiracy theory that's about the oceanic feeling and or AI as dreaming agent. And that is that the person that's like left behind is Keeper. Because Keeper has this moment in the previous chapter where he talks about like the flames of hell looking at his boots, his foreign boots.
Yeah.
And so this situates Tony and Keeper on the same virtual dream plane of intensities. And like they, despite having never met in real life, being, only tangentially connected, et cetera, like the oceanic feeling and or the AI know enough about Keeper or somebody like Keeper who must exist to be able for this to appear in Tony AI's dreams.
Well, that's fascinating too, because if that's latent, right, then it's in tension with what's manifest in the chapter, which is like that the IPA, right, the predictive analytics failed to mark Keeper as a terrorist, but like that's not what we know him as, right? We know him as like almost prophetic at this point.
Yeah,
sort of like he's like
prophets
sacrificed for the cause, and he stands in for like every American that was left behind, right? So like in that sense, and that he's kind of like closest to, not to God, but like to the question of God, or like the misery of feeling like God is, or a God or some God has like abandoned you.
Yeah. I like this reading. I mean, there's another reading available that we could then go back to the 802 dream, in which this is a dream about being in a black site for 17 months.
Yeah.
Because Tony mostly doesn't ever want to talk about that. And to the AI, he doesn't want to talk about it. So if we proceed from the theory that like Tony tells the AI the manifest and the AI projects the latent, maybe the AI is like, well, he doesn't want to tell me about this, so I have to. So this algorithm must.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard.
So the algorithm must, the model must generate an attempt to grapple with that in a symbolic and psychic register.
Do you see why this chapter broke my brain?
Yes.
I'm like,
well, can I keep trying to break it? Because then if we take that back to 802, then the hundreds of people gathered in an enormous circle around dusty ground, dressed in red and white, faces obscured by black masks with no mouth or eye holes. Those are the other prisoners. Like those are the other like homini sacri, right, to go Agamben about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoa. Okay, so dumb read, but Tony is the Wolfman.
And Little Hans.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wait, what's the Little Hans dream again?
The Tony dream or the
actual one?
The Freud dream.
The Freud dream.
It's like the guy who's Freud's buddy who's like, I too can do Oedipal psychoanalysis. And so like his son Little Hans observes a horse like carrying things through the streets that collapses and the things spill everywhere. And then he starts like having dreams about horses, if I'm remembering correctly, and also like is scared of horses in real life and and like is scared of transport. And so then like Freud and his friends like battle over what the correct interpretation of this is. Right. Over time. So
the horse dying in a muddy road. Yeah, exactly. It's just a direct reference to that.
Mm-hmm.
But then that's interesting if we think Markley's doing that on purpose, then that there's a famous battle over what it means is also hysterical.
Especially when there's the Nietzsche of it all, and like Nietzsche and the horse is also potentially at work here too, if we want to be real multiplicity about it.
If we want to be rhizomatic about it. And we do, John, and we do.
There are always several wolves. That was the lesson of one or several.
Is the AI a body without organs? That's what I need to know.
The AI is at least capable of generating bodies without organs. Like literally the bodies lack eye and face holes back in 802. So
Did we already read 8-12? Or
we only the horse.
Do you want to read the rest of it?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, this is going to be a gigantic episode. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. He thought of Gail. So this is before he falls asleep. He thought of Gail. He thought of cancer. Yes, of course, if we don't get the major economies on board, all this will be for nothing. That night, he dreamed of walking over verdant countryside, gazing out at rolling hills that gave way to mountains beneath black clouds. Families were crossing the fields, young children scattered everywhere. He had Gail and his girls by his side. They were all much younger. Holly, preteen and quietly curious about every blade of grass. Catherine, a bouncing ball of energy. The four of them passed a horse dying in a muddy road. Maybe it had been struck by a vehicle. Its body was paralyzed, but it could lift its head. Tony wished he could help, but they had to keep moving. They passed a woman growing a vegetable garden in the hull of an old boat, half buried in the earth. A man was asking her if the deer would get to her vegetables. She sighed and said, probably. Tony took his girls by the hand and they kept on. He didn't know where they were going. Maybe they were trying to get home.
Okay, this is so funny because the part you read that leads into it, right? This is literally the content question, the literal content question in Freud, right? He's thinking right before bed. He thinks of Gail. He thinks of cancer. He's talking about if we can't get all the major economies on board, this will all be for nothing. So like the manifest is this kind of like scary thing, but it has like a weird sort of like calm affect to it, right? He's like
it's bucolic, yeah.
Yeah, but he's like observing things that are also grotesque. So there's like that kind of juxtaposition or tension between the bucolic and the grotesque or something, or the like anxious or whatever. But then it's like, okay, well, maybe the horse dying in a muddy road has cancer. It hasn't been struck by a vehicle, it has cancer. Or maybe like the woman growing a vegetable garden in the hull of an old boat half buried in the earth is like Gail, like from beyond, trying to exercise her influence or like continue to kind of grow her vegetables or whatever, if that's a metaphor for like raising her children in some way in absence or something like that. And then like, where are we going? I don't know. Was it all worth it? Are we ever going to get these? Will we have gotten the major economies on board in the long run? Or can we go home? You know what I mean? Or are we literally going nowhere because we are not going to get this passed? Like that's the kind of like literal, latent reading of the manifest, like affects of the dream that he like sets up right there for us.
I like making it about Tony's role in trying to birth a new world out of the old one.
Yeah.
Because that read you just gave us totally works. And also we should do the interpretation of the dream where his family members are not actually his family members, right? But they're standing in for other people or things or concepts. And like I could maybe propose Tony's entire adult life is that people or the climate or the Anthropocene or the whatever are the horse dying in the muddy road. And his life is about actually trying to stop and help the horse.
Yep.
When the temptation to just continue on your bucolic existence, like not thinking about the dying muddy horse. Because Tony says he wished he could help, but they had to keep moving. So like that's, I think, Tony's constant fear. But then in his life, he both helps and keeps moving despite forces wanting to prevent that movement from happening.
Yeah, totally. That's so good. And I think that speaks to some other like moments where he's not really dreaming. He's like awake, but sort of musing, right? Where he's thinking about the math and he moves to his granddaughter, right? Yeah. That she's going to inherit this, that she's going to be that maybe hers will be the last generation to ever live because it will be too hot to sustain or whatever.
And also the woman growing a vegetable garden in the hall is Kate Morris, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
Yep. Okay. Maybe we should be done with our lit review.
I mean, you know me, I want the paper to be only a lit review, but yes, we should probably move forward.
I feel like we have teased a lot of things or set up a lot of things that we wanted to discuss anyway. So
yes,
we're just going to pull all the threads out together and make them messier.
Yeah. So let's head into the methods and the findings. And methods is appropriate for where we want to start.
Yes.
So this is a novel where the personal and political are very closely intertwined, and that's especially true of this final Tony chapter. But then this is also and there's a couple of ways that Tony thinks about this. So there's like the cancer is a too obvious metaphor for what humans have done to non-human nature.
Yeah.
And so much so that this shitty cliche on 825. Excuse me. We have Catherine, we have Holly, we have Ash, we have Emmy, and various like drawing out aspects of Tony's personal and professional overlapping life. Mm-hmm. The fact that we get Emmy so much more as a character only after her death in the previous chapters, I think, also notable because it just makes it all the more tragic. And that this is the chapter where, and you were pointing out some of this before we started talking, we get time in the book folding back in on itself, and we get so much perspective of other events of the like final book of the Deluge, right? So the aftermath of Kate's death, Ash's final chapter, we essentially like speed run through Ash's final chapter again here, and then get some extra bonus Ash chapter in this, which is one of the many parts that makes me cry about it. We get the details of and the aftermath of 6 degrees and the country and the world, the 6 degrees attack, right? Ash's life beyond the end of Ash's chapter. We get the like, tragic in advance and in retrospect, everyone's going to go to the Blue Crystal Mountain Resort to follow Russ Mikowski to there. And we know what happens there. And like I said, Emmy's death becomes more tragic because we get an added side for her. And then we also have, it struck me more upon this read than in other reads, that despite Tony's reluctance to think about or dwell on his time being detained in a black site where he only is like quasi outside for 1 hour a day in the courtyard where there's a mesh screen on top still, that there still is a fair amount of Tony remembering his detention directly to the AI that then writes Tony's chapters.
Yeah. And that's what we're supposed to think, right?
Yes.
And I think for me, this is what's really interesting about all those layers of temporality here. We learn almost near the end of this chapter that Tony gets approached to write a memoir, and the guy who approaches him makes him a good pitch. And also he's dying. So he's like suddenly filled with this desire to like tell his story to make sure. But the guy's like, this is a moment. Like, we need to have a record of what happened at this moment. And like, you're at the center of it. So you need to do that. And he's like, I'm too old. I write too slow. And the guy's like, oh, we'll hire someone. And Tony's like, I don't trust a stranger. And this guy gets like a mystical, mischievous look in his eye and is like, have I got a deal for you? Right. Like, and we learn that the first thing Tony tells this AI is about the anthrax scare. So that's the moment when we're like, I mean, it like dawns on me, but doesn't really like crystallize until he tells that story. And I'm like, oh, every Tony chapter we've read is a chapter from the memoir that the AI wrote based on the stories Tony told. So we know now that those chapters were all written by an AI, single one.
Because we also get the editor asking Tony to tell the story about going to the fires in California. So like the Old Demonio chapter is not told to the AI, but is told to the person who deploys the AI for Tony to work with.
Yeah.
And like, even the writing style itself, because like he has this moment on 827, the paragraph you're referencing. After a moment, he got a PDF of the document, a chapter-length narrative of his experience.
It's so hilarious. That's what we read.
Yeah, exactly.
Tony, sorry, this breaks my brain. Tony in the novel is reading the novel that we're reading.
Yes, 100%.
It's insane.
It is insane, right? What was on these pages was not just a recollection of his experience. He recognized each tick of his own worried, weary, complicated brain. He saw the things about himself that he liked the least. He saw how hot his fear was. It's a good sentence. How great his pain, how deep his love. And the writing of one's memoir with AI assistance as a method of self-revelation in a novel, within a novel that the reader is at the same time reading, is just fucking bonkers. And moreover, it's like a basic narrative question too, because before that he says, it asked if he wanted first person or third person, and on a whim he clicked third, which is fucking hilarious to have that be an on a whim decision when Mark Lee spent like a dozen years writing this fucking book, and I'm sure obsessing over plotting out the different POV structures of what and the perspective in the different chapters.
Yeah, which we know a lot about because we also spent so much time deliberating over the structure of our podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And we definitely researched what a pitch deck is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the same methods.
Are we the AI?
Shit. Uh-oh.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about. Like, okay, so we learn now, we've discovered that the AI has written all these chapters. And so what does that mean now about all these temporal, what do we want to call them? Like constellations or something.
Tensiles, right? To use a word from the dream earlier.
Yes. Like,
and now to go back to cultural objects, and I'm thinking about like the story of your life, right? So the novella or short story that is the basis of Arrival. By Ted Chiang.
Yes. Oh, geez.
How did we not do that?
I don't know. Okay, we have to start this podcast over.
Well, thankfully, Story of Your Life will be appropriate to every single chapter if or when we are the Deluge 2, we are the Ministry of the Future.
We're doing that. I'm sorry. It's the only way I can deal with the end of this book is to have that to look forward to.
Yep.
But also your point about like the black site, how would you, it's like a kind of absence in the temporal frame or something like that.
Structuring absence, if you will.
Yeah, structuring absence. Like it's one thing he tells the AI is that that's not what he wants his girls to remember. Mm-hmm. So like what we get from the AI is the like whatever little bits that he manifest gave, and then whatever latent bits the AI picked up, right? And we know the AI is doing this because Tony says that, right, in that passage that you were just reading, right? He confesses that the AI like told a story that he didn't know he was telling it.
Yes.
Which is a mindfuck. And so like what we get about the black site is like from his like less than conscious articulation of the fear he has around it. But I think also at the same time, the AI respects his desire to not have that be the thing that defines like his participation in this moment, and maybe explains why the El Demonio chapter is so cinematic, right?
Ooh,
the AI is like honoring his wish to be actually a real hero, not kind of like a grumpy anti-hero. Mm-hmm. But it's not, he didn't say that explicitly. That was delivered to the AI kind of unconsciously in what he said he didn't want to be seen as. So that there are different versions of Tony that seem to be in conflict with one another is a function of like what he's telling the AI versus what the AI is hearing underneath what he's telling. And also the AI like honoring his specific kinds of desires and requests, right? It's always for his daughters. Like the story is for his daughters, but it's also for, differently from Ash, like posterity, right? And so like, and maybe this is jumping ahead a little bit, but if we compare their last conversation in this chapter to their last conversation in Ash's chapter, it's a different conversation. Did you go back and read it?
Of course I did.
Yeah. It's like, it's totally different conversation. Mm-hmm. The who holds the ball in the like, you know, in how the conversation is going to unfold, who's pressuring who on what, how much he reveals, what even the questions were. So like, but we know that chapter Ash wrote only for posterity, right? It's the first thing we get from him that's not addressed to anyone else. Mm-hmm. And now we know that Tony's AI wrote this version of the conversation. So like, which one really happened?
Which one really happened? And on top of that, does it even make sense to call them Tony chapters? Right. Yes. Or to call them Tony chapters and assume that is a one as opposed to a several proposition. Yes. or attempt to establish some continuity of subjectivity from Tony 1, quote unquote, to 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Can I hit on one of them, like, what is Stephen Markley doing here points?
Yes.
And this is why I think he's read a lot of political theory, because if you're in political theory, you know that one of your favorite things to do is to undermine your project and premises from the beginning. And that's a classic teaching move as well. And so Markley is just constantly undermining the existence of this book, the market for this book, this book being the Deluge or Tony's book or both, and his own ability or desire to write this novel.
Yes.
Because at the top of 823, he did yearn to tell his story. This is Tony. He suspected most everyone felt this way. In the face of the impossible eternity that awaited, people wanted to take their futile shots at being remembered, right? It's like, is that Markley's self-diagnosis? Speaking of psychoanalysis, is that Markley's self or other diagnosis of him?
Okay, but then we have to keep going and read the whole next paragraph.
Absolutely. What has just occurred, said Park, a perfectly groomed, exquisitely dressed man in a pair of high-end AR glasses, could end up being one of the most consequential turning points in American and global history, and I've taken it upon myself to go out and find as many first-person accounts of the moment as I can. The public is voracious for books about the climate crisis, and like that's Tony understands that as kind of a neg on the desire for climate books, especially when we think back to the Ash chapter where he makes fun of Seth's many climate books that are on the fucking bookshelf.
I wrote that's my biggest, most underlined LOL.
Yeah.
The whole
I know.
is in that passage.
Yeah, because it's it's Markley. It's Markley self-negging, like, well, am I just doing this because there is a market for climate books?
But also, let's offer a different read of this passage,
please.
Markley is Park, a perfectly groomed, exquisitely dressed man in a pair of high-end AR glasses. He had black hair sweeping back stylishly, a fancy watch, and a meticulous, powerful way of massaging the air with his hands as he explained himself. What a way to be like, I am the GOAT, also a totally neg your own aspirations and projects. Like that, this was my conspiracy theory. Is that paragraph like the paragraph where Markley appears most as he imagines himself in both senses?
Can I say that is second place in relation to something that happens on page 828? Okay. So, so Tony's AI says at the bottom of 828, in the writing of your first book, what made you think as an oceanographic scientist that you knew the best way forward economically and politically on curbing carbon pollution? Tony looked up from stroking Tyrion. Had that been sass he'd heard in her tone? Oh, I didn't. I took a look at the numbers civilization needed to hit to ensure the stability of biosphere. Then I designed the plan backward from there. You know, sometimes you can almost believe you're her. It's just like for a second I'm talking to her again, which is a question about why does Markley, this writer, trying to solve the economic and political ways to curb carbon pollution, and why did you think that you, Markley, as a non-scientist, non-political theorist, although I guess he's a political theorist in our book at this point, 100%. Think you could write this book of environmental humanities fiction, political theory, whatever? I
really wanted you to pretend to make a Freudian slip and read oceanographic scientist as oceanic. Oceanographic scientist as oceanic.
I should on purpose, accidentally. I should have. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like that's Markley justifying why he wrote this novel, yes?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
While simultaneously having spent the entire novel undermining the idea of the white male author who knows everything and can say whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, but it's also really funny to position himself as just the guy who's taken it upon himself to go find as many first-person accounts of this moment as possible.
Yeah.
So, he's not the author. Wink, wink.
Right. So this is why your Markley is the editor. Theory comes from.
Which also makes the role of the AI so troubling. I wonder.
We should point out that this book, comes out as ChatGPT is rolling out publicly.
Right.
So like this is all presaged by Markley.
But I wonder though, and maybe this will come up in the Matt chapter and we can just put a pin in this and come back to it. But like what we're dealing with in the landscape of AI right now as a climate disaster is, I don't think, prefigured in the book in the way it should have been or could have been, or if he was writing it now, it would have to be.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that assessment.
Which is interesting. And maybe like in the last Matt chapter discussion we can think about like whether this is maybe a like undergrad question, but like to what is this book prescribing as sort of like the way forward, the way home, whatever? And like, are we still in, like, do we still exist in where are we in the world of the Deluge, I guess maybe is like at this moment rather than at the moment when it was published or written or conceived or whatever.
This is
the parable question too. Parable is our question.
Exactly. So like one of my students in class yesterday, we were talking about like, okay, so Butler like looks over, right? She's projecting forward, 35 years, give or take, from when she's writing, and is not interested in like narrating the interim 35 years. One of my students said, well, it's a little bit like the Parable of the Sower picks up at the end of the Deluge, because those are the two books that we've read. So like shouts to her for making that sort of like temporal continuity between the two of them, that the Deluge is about the collapse, and then Parable is about 100 things, but also about the surviving and building anew from the collapse.
Right. What comes after. Yeah. Interesting. I feel like there's more temporality structure stuff, but I don't know.
Well, so let's talk about Kate, which is also a temporality question.
So true. Yeah.
That's the opening to the chapter.
Yeah, Kate's funeral, which Tony misses because he has a stomach ache. So this is also, Kate is tied in with his cancer, which is really interesting. So like, which is also a pair for Ash, right?
Sure.
But Ash watches it on TV as well.
Yes.
And has a different emotional experience than Tony does, but one that is not the like, quote unquote, maybe right kind of emotional experience still, right?
But nonetheless is less hostile towards Kate than at any other point in the novel.
Yeah.
Ash.
But then like for Tony, it's relief, right? He's like bowled over with relief that his daughter wasn't there. So like he is sort of like grieving in a way, but it's like opposite grieving. He's like grieving the happiness, if this makes sense, of not having had, of like a grief that could have been, you know what I mean? And like very easily could have been, and could have been more than once, right?
And that's the point that he makes, and like wonders about, he doesn't use the phrase survivor's guilt, but in class someone talked about like, this is Tony wondering about Holly's survivor's guilt.
Totally.
Which this student then also applied to Jackie, is having a lot of survivor's guilt in her life.
Oh, right. And like in so many senses too.
And Kate is having survivor's guilt, and that Kate, and then I asked if like then the Kate Jackie conversation in Jackie 5 is like the transfer of the survivor's guilt from Kate to Jackie, as
This is so interesting, and maybe we're getting ahead and we should have this conversation in Matt book, but like,
it's all right.
Okay, we've said Keeper had to die. We were talking about in the Keeper chapter, Murdoch is sort of like already having been dead, and he dies in this chapter.
He's finally goes, now he's with God, tastes like chicken and we'll all be with God soon. And now he's with God. And
he's with God. And Kate had to die, right? So like in part, and Tony, I don't know, let's come back to that question. But like, so Jackie and Holly then are sort of like what's left, right? They're the rest of us who have to keep going on and like hold the memories of those who died in the flames of like the old world or something like that.
And,
right?
And like Rakia gets a mention here too. So I think she's there as well. And that'll come up. Interesting
to think about these like tertiary characters or secondary characters even as like, well, Jackie's a primary character.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is interesting.
But it's like it's at every level. right?
Yeah.
So you have the primary, secondary, and a tertiary character in this like little, three tripartite system we came up with.
Right. Yeah. Fascinating. I was really struck too by like, and maybe this is back to the AI writing this question, but like, Kate, how does Tony think about Kate's legacy against like what he hopes his legacy will be? And then like, I think it's kind of sad what we learn about Keeper's legacy here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's precisely the wrong legacy.
Yeah. And like, I think we're supposed to think at the end of this chapter that like Ash is one of the ones who gets to live, right? But who has to bear. But
so many
it's not
people.
Guilt. It's like something else. But it is guilt. It's just Ash's version of guilt.
Yeah, that Ash's version of guilt that he can't feel guilt and grief.
So they're all kind of like weird anti-heroes in their relationship, either A, to Kate, but B, to like the question of who gets to live and who has to die.
Yes.
Because like me and you want to read Keeper as kind of, I think, a hero in some way. Like a very complicated, very...
Yeah, despite myself in some ways. Yes, absolutely. I want to read Keeper as a hero.
Yeah. But like Tony denies, or at least this version of the afterlife of his act that we get in the novel in Tony's chapter denies him that capacity.
I think it both offers and denies it to him because I think there are many places in this chapter where the heroicness of what Tony, and not alone, but what Tony and others have done is actually quite directly put in front of us and we're asked to consider it. But that each time that happens, Markley undercuts it. Right. So that's the like taking away of the heroic stature that has been offered. And then to think about that in the context of as you put before we got started, like we now have Kate's death and then 3 men reflecting on Kate. And guess what? We get a fourth, 2 of them reflecting on Kate, although Kate Morris appears in Keeper's chapter as well.
Yeah.
And then we get another man reflecting about Kate in the next chapter. And it's like Kate can't have her own legacy, heroic or not be structured by the narratives that dudes make about her.
Yeah. Okay, breaking my mind again. Maybe that is also like a wink or a nod to the impossibility of Markley as the author.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, because another reason why Kate is the main character who can't be a point of view is because Markley only has access to her through masculinity. So he's like, I'll just give you all of these men thinking about Kate.
Okay. So this, maybe this is why Freud, one of the reasons why Freud is so prominent in this chapter.
Okay.
Kate is Dora.
Ooh. This is the right analogy.
Right? So like Dora's like the hysteria, like the playbook for hysteria, right? She like loses her, what is it? She loses her voice.
I don't remember.
Or something.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can really quickly find a little bit of it. Oh yeah. Her most manifest hysterical symptom was loss of voice, aphonia. And then like she sort of serves as the entire like basis for his kind of diagnosis of the feminine condition. But it's a case that's like really interesting because he like can't cure her. So she's a failure of his own method. Not only did he not alleviate her symptoms, but he couldn't map her as gay, right? She was like attracted to her father's mistress and he couldn't like suss that out or like validate that kind of expression. So feminists have loved this case or this treatment of this case because it speaks to like Freud's own like masculinity, right? The impossibility of Freud to like assess or analyze the feminine or female subconscious because of his own commitments to like the phallic investiture or whatever.
Also, just side note, Dora is the sister of Otto Bauer. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
And she's kind of like a hero in her silence, right? And the way this is unlocking so much. So she's like her silence is a sort of silent revolt against patriarchy. So Kate is not silent in this book, but she does not have her own voice. So her revolt is like not silent, but it is
several voices.
Well, yeah, but it's like she's rendered an object of the book rather than like a subject of the book. And so in that way, her like voice, she doesn't like, she literally does not have a voice in the way that the other principal characters have voices.
Okay. So I have two follow-up thoughts. So Kate is to Dora as Markley is to Freud. That's the analogy. Okay. Yeah. So then my second question is that, in conjunction with the AI wrote the Tony chapters, is more fucked up. I can't say this for cryptic foreshadowing reasons. Okay. Let's come back to Kate and Dora, I guess, in this question. And later on in the podcast, I wonder what chapter.
Next time.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Ooh.
Should we talk about the fate of 6 degrees and like where we kind of think, is this like Markley's final word on the debates of 6 degrees and the question of political violence, do we think, or is it like more opaque than that?
I think that's the right way to consider it. And in part because, I distinctly remember that you correctly pointed out in Shane 5 that we don't have to, and maybe Markley is asking us specifically not to be like, we can use this to definitively say that Fierce Blue Fire was right and 6 degrees is wrong.
Yeah.
And he does, I think, a similar move here with regards to 6 degrees, because like 6 degrees attacks worked, but not for the purpose they intended. It worked for the purpose that the Committee to Unfuck the World intended.
Right.
So it's like it worked, but not for the goals of the manifesto that we get the piece of in this Tony chapter, but rather, so it failed on 6 degrees' own terms, but cruelly succeeded on Ash's terms, and then eventually Tony gets converted to thinking of it, I think, in that way.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's look at 8:10 and 8:11.
Yes.
So Tony read the manifesto disseminated online by 6 degrees. The people Vic Love's government had tried to yoke him to a few years earlier, costing him 17 months of his life. It was their typical drivel, but now making clear that the nature of the confrontation would change. So, and then 6 degrees says, and we know this is like a different 6 degrees from the Shane one, right? But it's like the heart of all their disagreements is sort of like, I think, in this missive, right?
Right. Shane is not the author here, but yet she is because of Shane 3.
Yeah.
And the, like, discussion they had in the cabin in Wisconsin.
No longer can we restrict ourselves to the machinery and equipment of industrial capitalism. We must confront the actors who make this genocidal system possible. We must make it dangerous to profit from the Holocaust of our world. What the last 2 decades have taught us is that systems of militarism, carbon energy, and white supremacy will do anything to hold on to power. The people whose lives we took on August 15th are being described as innocent. They were not. They were the factotums of a machine that is killing millions daily with its ultimate endgame, the annihilation of every species on the planet, including humankind. If there was ever a moral argument for initiating a campaign of violent resistance, this is it. There is no neutrality in this war. And then
I would have probably gone with 2 factotums of a machine for the intro for us.
Ooh, that's good.
But, yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting because, right, like we get this sort of awe that follows about them, not because of their politics, but because of their success.
Yes.
Like, how did they do it?
And structurally, it cuts immediately from that, not to Tony's further thoughts on the drivel of 6 degrees, but to, and like within 2 paragraphs, the compromise has been made and the bill has been passed.
Yeah, my other favorite joke in this chapter is
What's that?
The acronym for the bill.
Erase.
Ecological Restoration and Solutions Emergency Act. Erase. What a hilarious, like, okay.
It's also a transposition of letters.
Yes. Yeah. But what is being erased there? Is it like, let's erase the fact that it took us so long to do this, or like, let's erase
the fact that it took eco-terrorists having the most successful campaign and attack ever for this to happen?
Yeah.
Perhaps.
It's so funny. But I'm also like, ooh, I wonder what Mark Lee thinks the joke is, you know? But then, okay, so juxtapose. So Tony says it's drivel. We get the statement in its full, and it's like, I think at least if you find the 6 Degrees chapters in their debates compelling, it's a compelling statement because it is like a very clear argument about the nature of the crisis and the moral stakes of the crisis and like what the ethical grounds are for, or justification for violence are. And it's sort of like no nonsense in that sense, which is funny that Tony calls it drivel. But then we learn that they get their fates handed to them, right? Like Murdoch kills himself before he can be hauled
captured,
in. And then we learn that Quinn, Kai,
and Jancy.
Jancy. Yeah, Janine Cecilia. I was like, wait, who's that? Jancy. Are arrested. And they're probably going to face the death penalty. So, like, what does it mean to give them the space to, like, have the last say on where they landed with the moral question, but also to hold them accountable and also to have Ash really be the one who wins, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, not Kate.
Ash winning is, I think, maybe Kate. Okay, again,
I want to wins.
Well, I want to save that conversation for the next chapter, if we may. Ash wins, yes. And I think there's a little bit of like climate Leviathan with some tiny climate Mao elements wins, thus is part of it. But I think the giving them the space to kind of press their case and then nonetheless they're held accountable by the U.S. justice system understands it is emblematic of Mark Lee, I think, fully seriously wanting to consider 6 Degrees' case and case initial and case as it escalates throughout the course of the novel and not like prejudge that they must be wrong while simultaneously questioning whether they could ever be right.
Yeah.
And thus frustrating a clear answer to like 6 Degrees yes or 6 Degrees no question.
I gotta say, Murdoch's death is like very devastating to me. What is with my like affinity for all these like horrible male characters?
I think Murdoch is. I don't even.
He's like, I think this is maybe the hottest take, but I find him in the book the most like morally pure. Which is an insane thing to say because he doesn't, for most of the novel, he doesn't even know what's going on.
He's dissociating throughout the entirety of it.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Wait. Maybe in an insane world, the only sane way to deal with it is dissociation.
Yeah. He just seems to me to have like the clearest read on everything.
He, I think, has some of the least self-delusion.
Yes. That's maybe the way to say it.
Even of characters who, and here I'm thinking about Ash and Tony, understand themselves to not engage in self-delusion.
Well, that's the most deluded thing of all.
Of course.
That's insane.
Yes, I know.
Oh my God.
So the bill passes semi-intact. Climate stuff mostly stays. No tax reform, no healthcare policy, no social policy. So we get what like did and did not make it through. And now like the question becomes the international negotiations. I love the scenes of the international negotiations.
Yeah, they're really good.
That Tony is a part of. Obviously the one with China most of all, but then also the one with India. But before we get to that, like the odd couple that helps make this happen are Tony and Emmy.
Yeah.
Who have like the world's most fucked up meet cute of like hating one another for like literally 2 decades, a decade.
Yeah. 20 years. Yeah.
For Emmy to be woken up by Tony's fucking nightmare screams comes over while they're in Sun Valley, Idaho. And like they start sleeping together every night.
Yeah, and she instigates and he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, correct. And he literally says, I've been like calling, I've been insulting you in public for a very long time. Yeah. That's all I ever do.
He's like, but this is why I'm like, is there a read of her where she knew her daughter was passing on information and facilitated that? Because she's like, I've always admired you, right?
Yeah.
Which like maybe is just like a flirty, sexy thing, but maybe she's like trying to like tell him like, hey, we're actually on the same side here. I know it doesn't seem like it, but
I don't know if I would go that far.
Okay,
I don't know if I'd go that far. I think it's Emmy Lee Song comes out, I think, in this chapter is actually somebody who, despite carrying water for the fucking fossil fuel industry for her entire life, actually she's on the Murdoch end of self-delusion.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
I think it's something about that like I wonder if it's something that attracts her to Tony if we take her to seriously mean that. And I think we can do that. Is she has a job and thus a life that involves constantly like hiding herself, hiding the ball, not saying what she actually wants to say, but saying what the moment needs to be said. And Tony is like, fuck all of that. I'm going to say whatever I think all the time, no matter what. Fuck the consequences.
And she likes that.
To his own self-destruction but also to the success of the Erase Act.
Erase. Okay. New take. All the principals, LOL. All the primary characters. All the primary characters suffer from self-delusion. And maybe this is something about Kate.
Okay. Is Kate less self-deluded than any of the POV chapters? I think other than Keeper, she has the least self-delusion of the POVs, and maybe Ash.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves continuously.
Yeah. There's still a lot to say about this Tony chapter. Yeah. It's a very strange thing to have happen. It's a like quarter eye roll, but 3/4 actually this is carried out so effectively I don't care for me.
Which?
The Tony and Emmy relationship.
Oh, yeah. I like it.
Something that's no eye rolls, but just like tears emanating from my own eyes is Tony and Ash.
Yeah.
Like
the scene when Ash visits him.
Their deep bond, like between the two of them, is one of the most emotionally affecting parts of this novel.
Yeah.
For me.
In every chapter where it happens. In this one, when Tony
there's several of them,
after Hanaya is passed, and
oh my god,
that moment when Ash says, this is one of my big kind of Ash questions, actually, that is like Ash as a character coming back, even when we think we don't get him anymore. But he says that their deaths don't matter on 810. Like all that matters is this bill. But I wonder if what he means is that their deaths won't matter if we don't do this bill.
I think that's precisely what he means.
And like, I think we get that read of him. Like Tony's like, how can you say that, man? But I think he also, or his AI or whatever, portrays it so generously that like that read is available to us. Like that Ash says don't, but what he means is won't. And like, it's actually a moment where he's like, it's an expression of his grief rather than a repression of it.
That's, I think, entirely true. And because of the depth of the bond between the two of them, like that's why Ash says, Tony, you may be one of the only people who will appreciate what I'm about to say. Tony waited. And like the fact that Tony waited as opposed to like jumping in right away is, I think, also telling. And the first time that I cried about Ash and Tony is this moment where Ash says, not the time, Tony, let us skip the platitudes. Let us look at the wound straight on. And I mean, earlier in the chapter, we get like Ash telling Tony, like, one of the things I respect about you is like the willingness to look at the wound.
Yeah.
Right? And Ash understanding, I think, both the emotional depth, but like the rhetorical argumentative force of the particular argument is very indicative, not of Ash and Ash 1, but of Ash and Ash 5.
Yeah, totally. Every line in their last scene from 829 to 830 both made me sob, but also crack up. It's so funny. It's such a funny conversation. Like the first thing Ash says is, you've survived longer than I expected, which is incredible. When he says when he apologizes and is like, I know how annoying it is when people wish you well.
Which is what Tony wanted to hear all along.
Share cliches and recycled inspirational tropes. And it's so beautiful. When he says we're way more alike than I even fucking feared, I was like sobbing.
Absolutely. Can I go back to I know this is a long podcast. Can I go back to an earlier Ash Tony thing?
Mm-hmm.
And it gets back to the point you made earlier about like the temporality of it and the fact that we get the exact same conversation from Tony to the AI's point of view here, such that it is basically a different conversation. And yet the point and the humor of it are exactly the same, despite them becoming different conversations. So it's, let's see. This is Ash to Tony, and Tony's telling on 806. You have a responsibility, Tony, to help arrest this breakdown. You are a father and grandfather. To think that this chaos will not come to your doorstep is naive, particularly for Holly, who is now a highly public figure. The chill crawled through him as he heard his truest fear spoken aloud. Hassan then stepped far too close, almost like he was going to attack him. I don't accept your resignation because you don't have the option of resigning. You and I have no choice but to throw ourselves in front of this train. He turned and began walking back towards the hotel. Over his shoulder, he added, so to speak.
Yeah, so good.
Which is simultaneously that like moral responsibility question, but also the humor of like Ash working with metaphors.
It's also really interesting in that this is like the temporality thing too. Like in this chapter or in this version of the conversation, Tony reports Ash as like receiving the news of him having a health issue without surprise and not even asking, which is not how Ash narrates that situation at all. Ash says, surprise. He said, may I ask what issue? And that Tony like bumbles something about like, you know, his kid's going through a hard time or whatever, and doesn't even mention really his health. He says personal issue. Mm-hmm. It's like very fascinating.
Will you indulge me in a bit of corniness?
Yes.
Do you want to flip to 818 and 819 and we read one of us for Tony, one of us for Ash?
Yeah.
What is in some ways another like thesis statement of the book, I think. Mm-hmm. Do you want to be Tony or Ash?
I'll be Tony.
Okay.
Okay.
It's my ancestral homeland. My mother's entire family has fled. The government is violent, irrational, and condones policies against Muslims that are near genocidal. Why wouldn't I care?
It's not about caring. It's about decoupling the issues. We don't live in black and white, never have, and certainly never will in this future. We need to hit net zero as fast as possible, or everything we're seeing is going to get much worse.
Every decision we make now, day by day, week by week, will be irrevocable. It would be arrogant if I didn't express my reservations about working with such a government.
We take what looks like the moral path as often as we can, with what information we have available, as you always say. That's all we can do.
I've come to decide morality and justice are overutilized words expressing misunderstood ideas. In the systems models, we see civil breakdown, mass refugee flows, unchained barbarity waged by populations of people trying to snatch or defend scarce resources. What if we reach that tipping point in which there's nothing left to be done but truly ghastly and draconian measures? You've seen the cryosat data from the summer.
Bad choices and bad alternatives abound. We're trying to save ourselves from being faced with the worst of them.
If we understand like the novel to be a form that is particularly adept at helping us think about moral responsibility, about agency, about decision-making choices in fraught circumstances, about deliberation and determination, that gets crystallized so closely in this conversation between the two of them. And that's the like, what are the disaster ethics of like in a terrible situation? What do morality and justice mean when there are only the bad choices and bad alternatives?
Yep.
And then, of course, we get the tombstone domino. Like maybe it's 230 feet of sea rise and 6 degrees of warming. And like my granddaughter will have to be a cannibal part of the time.
Mm-hmm. But I also think it is a callback to tipping points here, which is like from another like eternal return from book one. Yeah. What
do you think Markley is doing by like, once again, because there was a version of this in Ash 5 as well, turning us to this is the most important fucking accomplishment in the history of like American governance, other than maybe like Reconstruction amendments.
And it's probably going to fail.
Like we're potentially doomed to 6 degrees of warming, 230 feet of sea level rise. Like what is Markley doing with... Because I have a theory, so I'm just going to stop the question there before
so maybe one theory is it's not actually about Markley's view of the crisis. It's a commentary on Tony and Ash, two men who are rational thinkers who really believe in the power of data, on like the failure of their imagination to like conceive of A, it working, but also B, like that cannibalism is not the necessary result of a world that is warmed in some way. I don't know. This is maybe like not the right read, but it's one I wanna float as a way to think through the lack sometimes of an imagination of like the cold data.
Yeah, I can see that in the sense that, and this is like where the world of Parable of the Sower and then of the Talents is the world that's being described here in the Nightmare Tombstone Domino scenario. So I think there's that version of it. You know,
but also that Kate is doing the parable thing, right? Like creating something new in the like carcass or like decaying carcass, not
the
even
dead,
not even
horse.
Dead. Yeah.
I think there's also a reading available that's like too cute, but I'll go there anyway. It's a meta commentary on the futility of climate fiction. I think is available. That reading is available, but ultimately, and here's where this is a chapter that just makes you want to go with like the most sentimental reading of everything that's happening in the chapter.
It's a very sentimental chapter, and
that is that I think Mark Lee is envisioning this as a whether or not we're fucked and headed for 6 degrees of warming and 230 feet of sea level rise. That is not an argument to not try to fucking prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then like, it's a question about like in an almost virtue ethics sense, taking moral responsibility regardless of the outcome.
Right. So, I think that's the most straightforward read.
Yeah.
And it's probably Mark Lee's intention.
And well, I mean, I think our first question, if we ever had the chance to interview Stephen Markley, is like, how self-conscious are you about writing a climate novel when you were writing The Deluge?
Yeah.
But with that, I'm also setting up a little bit one of my cultural artifacts for the Matt chapter finale.
Ooh.
So
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like we should maybe figure out how to wrap up a little bit.
I would agree with that. You go.
I teased a little bit this in the cultural artifact, but I just, as an eldest daughter with a very tight relationship with my dad, the last scene of this chapter absolutely destroys me.
Excruciating in the best possible way.
Yeah. It's like really touching it's like a bummer that he's of that generation where like his daughters don't actually know kind of how he regards them, but we know at least through the AI that Tony has been trying to like process his like the depth of his like love and admiration of his daughters his whole life and feels like he's constantly failing at it. So it's just really fucking straight catharsis to the veins to have him like do it once and do it so clearly in a way where she like feels so seen and like where he says the thing that he meant to say, you know?
Yes. And like gives incredible advice about Holly or about Catherine to Holly, I mean.
Yeah, totally.
Before I'm going to cry just reading this. You grew into the most courageous person I've ever known, Holly. It's not just how much I adore you, darling, but how in awe I am of you. You've done things. You've become a person I never could have dreamed of. And my pride in you, Holly, and my love for you is absolutely bottomless. And bottomless is like the precisely perfect world given Tony's oceanic feeling.
Oh, wow. Thread that needle. Well, we're both just crying now.
I know. It's okay.
I guess, should we just deal with like Tony as a character and that kind of the last thing? Or
the pairing of him and Ash increasingly as the novel progresses is not an accident in the sense that both of them are what happens when you take people who understand themselves to be purely rational, disembodied, Cartesian, dualist minds and put them in a world and a set of circumstances in which they can't maintain that.
Yeah.
And like what happens at the end of that. And I think that the fact that both of them go through different versions of that and then recognize that about each other in different ways in this chapter points to that as being like one of the things that he does in the novel.
Yeah, and it also is a generational distinction too. Like Tony, this is gonna sound maybe fucked up, but like he kind of gets to die.
I know.
Like on a good note.
Absolutely, 100%.
And we don't know if the same will be true for Ash.
We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is. Is Tony a character that provokes optimism or not?
I don't know. This chapter weirdly I think ends on a quasi optimistic note.
I'm with you.
You know, the like you're not drowning in the ocean. You know what I mean?
No.
Like
or
you're sort of like floating in it.
Or not yet. And like in the meantime
and not necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the meantime there are fights to be had and fought, and there are chosen and biological family to love, like to be extremely fucking cliche and trite about it.
Yeah. Right. There's work to do. So let's get fucking on with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is a Kate Morris approach to fucking life, you know?
Totally. Oh, yeah. So in the end, Tony is now actually, he's adopted Kate's perspective without realizing it. I love that.
Perfect. Which means the AI has adopted Kate's perspective, which we can talk about in the next chapter, arguably.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we add some footnotes?
Yeah. I've already pointed to a lot of the things that I thought were really funny in this chapter. Erase is hilarious. The like, I, Stephen Markley, am the editor collecting all the first person accounts is hilarious. There were like, let me see how many I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's like 7 different places in this chapter where Tony like insults somebody or observes something in a way that is so like old and grumpy that I just thought was so funny. I was like, the AI really captured Tony's voice.
Sure did. Well, I mean, it even starts that way, right? I was indisposed for part of that. The preventative care wasn't tip top in a black site prison.
Yeah. But also he opens the chapter talking about watching the funeral, and he describes his daughter's face as zitty and eyes puffy, which is like, what the fuck, man? She's going to read this book.
Especially, right? Especially when he previously narrated, like he said one thing about Holly's body. I forget if it was Holly or Kat's body once. And like that sent her into into an eating disorder. This
one's really gross, but like the past when he's talking about Joe Otero.
I love his descriptions of all of these 803. People.
Meanwhile, Joe Otero, some slop bucket Republican Mandarin whose sole qualification appears to be that he'd mildly resisted the pastor's fascism, had a nervous breakdown halfway through and had to piss his pants back to whatever slit he'd crawled out of. Like, Jesus Christ.
Freud alert.
Yeah.
All right. Freud alert.
Yeah.
With our boy Tony here. I mean, Admiral Doms, a needle-dicked Vic Love sycophant playing out his conscience of the military-industrial complex card while steering funding to massive Pentagon projects and base relocations.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed him referring to the 6 Degrees people being peckerwood bombers.
Yeah, so good.
On 802. Although I think the time I laughed the most, 2 of them haven't come up yet. One is the statue of like Bartholomew fucking Cleveland.
Yeah.
It's some random white guy. So my other option for an intro was, and you'll never find 2 bigger fans of Bartholomew fucking Cleveland than us.
That's good.
And then I think the time I laughed the hardest is actually because of the meta-ness of the commentary on the publishing industry, because the publisher is Penguin Schuster Collins. Yeah. Right. So like they consolidated, monopolized. And so of course I then turned the book to the side. It was like really funny that this is a Simon Schuster book, and they
they let that slide.
Yeah. And they didn't, or maybe they did try to take it out, and Markley was like, no, I wrote 900 pages for you.
Or maybe they didn't catch it.
or maybe it's like a neoliberal thing, and they're like, by letting that joke stay. Well, you surly fuck. I went from the enemy of the state to a prized egg.
Yeah, package me carefully.
Yeah.
I also like when he tells Ash that he tried on rose-colored glasses and they didn't look good.
It's good. It's really nice.
It's so funny.
Rip Tony.
You know, big rip. I really like when Marty Rathbone calls Tony and he's like, I have cancer. Me and Obama, right? Lucky us. And then Rathbone's like, fuck me, Tone. I'm sorry, man. Like that exchange. I was like, I could literally picture my dad having that conversation on the phone with like one of his pals from college. It was like, yeah. I also, Freud is very appropriate for reading Tony chapters for me because there is like a version of my father that is Tony. Like if my dad was a scientist and not a contractor, like Tony is who he would be.
Yeah.
Which also maybe explains a lot about like who I am as a person and my interest in this book more broadly.
Right. You and Holly Beatrice and actually an honorable figure to be paired with. I had a student the first time I taught this novel whose dad is a professor and said that it was a very strange and is like one of 3 sisters. And she said it was like a very like intense experience reading Tony and all of the familial stuff with Tony and professional stuff with Tony.
Can confirm the familial stuff at least. Should we conclude?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
What's your episode title?
I ripped it from a section of Dream that you read from earlier.
Okay, go for it.
Dreams of Civilization, Descendants, and all those dense, lonely spinning planets.
It's really good. I think we go with yours. Mine is Looking at the Wound, parentheses S, looking at the wound or wounds, what we dream of as factotums of the machine.
Oh, that's good though.
We can throw that into the summary. We'll make it work. But I think that the title is yours.
Great, man. Wow. R.I.P. Tony.
Yeah.
Okay. Up next, are we going to do Matt in 2 parts?
I think we decided that.
Okay. Up next, we have the first part of Matt 5, The Years of Rain and Thunder, Part 5, from 2039 to ...
Yeah.
So the Part 5.1.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of We Are the Deluge.
And we are the Deluge, literally, because we're crying.
Literally.